listening to Moments podcast with me, Shuang Cai. In this show, I am going to talk to artists, academics, industry practitioners, and entrepreneurs from a variety of backgrounds, each of whom is committed to imagining a better tomorrow and working to make it a reality. Some of their experiences are experimental, some are highly practical and ambitious. Most importantly, each dialogue is imaginative, because we want to engage in dialogue with people from all over the world who are curious about life, to enjoy a moment together, to seize the moment, to seize eternity. Join me and these amazing people and their experience life as it's meant to be lived. Welcome to Moments podcast. It's been a long time and today we have a very special guest.
Hello, I'm Natalie Diddams and I am an assistant professor in theatre and performance studies at Warwick.
And these days we are having a TAPRA conference.
Yeah, we're here at the TAPRA conference.
I know that you are an arts-based practitioner and nowadays in the academia at the same time, right? Are you still doing some practice-based projects?
Yes.
So how can you balance that? You know, your time, and you are still a mom nowadays, right?
Yes.
It's quite busy.
It is.
Right?
It is
How do you
quite
balance
busy.
your life and work?
I mean, how does anyone balance their life and their work? You just have to try your best. But I think it really helps because I do actually really enjoy my job. And having this role that I'm in now is actually probably the most balanced my working life has ever been, because I used to, before I was in academia, I was doing like often, 3, 4, even 5 jobs at the same time. Just because that's what being a freelancer is like, isn't it? So I might be doing a bit of lecturing, but also running a project, also working in theatre and education sort of jobs, doing my own projects with funding. So that was actually a lot harder to balance because it was all, going in different directions. Whereas at least here, I'm able to, do everything under one umbrella. And I can kind of plan my year a little bit so that there's times in the year where the research is the most important thing that's happening. And then there's times in the year when the teaching is the most important thing that's happening. The thing that doesn't happen so often is that the holiday is the most important thing that's happening. So I need to address that next year.
Earlier this year, I saw you organized a stand-up comedy show for undergraduate students downstairs. Do you know that night?
Yeah.
And I think, although, as a foreigner, I am a foreigner here, so I didn't understand some of the jokes here as a local jokes, but I could feel that the vibe, the atmosphere was very interesting and people enjoyed it, right? And when did you first become interested in stand-up comedy, in general? And what sparked your interest in this particular genre?
Good question. Yeah, so stand-up is a massive thing in the UK and it's only just been getting more and more popular in the last few decades. It's a very British art form and originated in the music hall in Victorian England. But obviously, you get stand-up cultures all over the world now. But I think in Britain, there's a particular love of stand-up. So I definitely felt like I was, brought up with, watching stand-up comedy with my family. I remember just absolutely adoring Eddie Izzard, probably way before I could even understand the nuances of their comedy. But I, just remember really, really just laughing until I was sick to some of those videos. So I've always sort of enjoyed stand-up. I would never have thought of myself as somebody that would, make their whole life about stand-up, because I wasn't that much of a fan. And actually, when I started going into theatre myself, a lot of the work that I was doing through my 20s was actually quite serious. So I was quite interested in political work and feminist work, and I was really trying to carve out a sort of, I don't know, identity for myself, I think, as a theatre maker that was like serious and, you know, quite earnest, really. And that's not obviously to say that all feminist work is like that, because actually there's a big history of feminism and comedy going hand in hand. But for me, the work I was doing was quite serious. And then when I was in my late 20s, I was sort of searching for a new project, and I was just struggling a little bit to find something that I really wanted to tackle, that's something that felt fresh. And I hit upon an ancient Greek comedy called Thesmophoriatsuzai, which is by Aristophanes, and it's a comedy that it's not often done because it's not very good, but it's a really interesting piece. It's about a group of women who are at the Thesmophoria, which is a women-only festival, and they are talking at this festival about how they're represented badly in Euripides' tragedies, and they want to murder him. They think that's like what they should do. So it's quite like absurd and extreme and violent, and I just really loved the energy of it. And obviously in the original productions the female chorus would have been played by men, but I was really interested in doing like a contemporary feminist response to it. So I got some money from the Arts Council and I started to research and develop an idea which is around this play, and I just noticed that I was like, wow, I've just never done comedy before practically, like I've never done it, and I felt quite out of my depth, but in a very exciting way. It felt really interesting, and alongside working with actors on the script, and I worked with a writer as well, I was running workshops with just ordinary women, and I had initially started doing them just for a bit of fun and also to gather some material that could go into the play, just to see what themes from the play sort of resonated with ordinary women. And then the workshops just had so much energy and excitement in them. And I just became fascinated basically by comedy. One of the things I got really fascinated in really was that I personally had never felt like I was funny, or that I would be able to do to make an audience laugh, for example. So I got really interested in that, and that's kind of then the beginning of a lot of my work then over the last sort of 8 years. So I did a project where called the Women's Comedy Workshop, which gets women to do stand-up for the first time, and my PhD came out of that, and now I'm writing a book about it. So it's actually been very generative and has led to lots of different things, but that's kind of where it came from.
Do you teach students for doing, how to do stand-up?
Yes.
Oh, for me, it's kind of hard to imagine, how do you teach students to do stand-up,
Yeah.
I always think people are, gifted or talented to be a stand-up comedian. Yeah. But how do you teach?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that, that being funny is something that you either have or you don't. But I do disagree with it. I do think obviously there's certain people that just are naturally very gifted. Just the same with acting. There's certain people that they just get up on stage and they're just really amazing, like you just believe them. And I think it's so, one of the things that's wonderful about that is you can't always put your finger on what it is. However, as Stanislavski argued, people can learn to be good actors as well. It's not just that you have it or you don't. And I think the same thing is true with comedy. I think, yes, there are people who are just naturally funny, but then actually what my research has shown, and the thing that I really hold on to, is I think a lot of people shut that side off of them. So we're all born being humorous. In fact, we're laughing and joking really before we speak. So it's our sense of humor is something that is very nuanced, very complex, very well developed. Everybody is funny in the right environment. And so really I think teaching somebody to do stand-up is about unlocking that side and looking then at techniques for bringing that onto stage and giving the audience a taste of you at your funniest. And I think when you teach it in that way, what you get is a real diversity of styles, which is kind of what we want. You know, if you go to a lot of, comedy gigs you can go to, everyone's just doing the same thing. You know, it's just like everyone's like telling the same kinds of jokes, and it's a bit boring because, you just have lots of people being stand-up comedians. But I think when you teach it in that way, where you're uncovering each person's individual sense of humour, what you get is people doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things on stage. And I often at my nights have like people doing character monologues, or singing and dancing, or doing something completely mime, or just coming at it. I had somebody not at the university but another night do a striptease. So lots of other things kind of coming into the stand-up mode, which I think is really nice and something to really be celebrated. Increasingly, contemporary theatre is very interested in that relationship with the audience. You very rarely nowadays go to a play where there's a fourth wall and the actors just pretend the audience isn't there. There's usually some element of immersiveness or participation at some point in the play. So I do think this is very, very contemporary, this idea of that relationship, and stand-up is really the place you're going to learn about that relationship more than any other form. And it also is really great for performers because you have to really think very clearly about yourself and how an audience reads you. And when you walk up on stage and you're not playing a character, you're being yourself. So what is the audience expecting, and how do you subvert those expectations, or how do you reinforce those expectations but in a way that's funny? And how do you allow an audience to laugh at you, and how do you kind of manipulate that laughter? So that the skills you're learning there can then be absolutely transported into other kind of modes of theatre where you're working with an audience or thinking about yourself as a performer. So I do think that really all theatre students should be doing it. I think when we're playing characters, we're always being ourselves. We can't get away from being ourselves, and the best actors really are diffracting themselves through the character. So what we are actually seeing is them being incredibly vulnerable. But there is something about stand-up which people find especially daunting, and I think it's because of the intention of, I'm just going to get up and I'm going to intentionally expect the audience to laugh, and that feels just nerve-wracking, because what if the audience don't? There's that feeling of like immediate failure. Whereas if you're acting, even if you do a terrible job and the audience absolutely hate it, usually you can get to the end of the scene. Like even if the audience is just like, not engaging, you can kind of just ignore each other. You get to the end and then you can go away, and you might not feel great about it, but it's not like the performance has to end. Whereas with stand-up, if it's not going well, you're getting that immediate feedback, and it can be difficult to finish the sets if you're not getting the response. So I think that's one of the reasons it's so scary. But I think that a lot of students really want to do it now. The module that I run here is popular. People really want to do it. And then whenever I run workshops for people outside of academia, just ordinary people, they're always...
They enjoyed it, right?
Very well. But and loads of people, we had to make the Women's Comedy Workshop competitive to get in, because we were getting so many applications, wanting to do it. So there's a real thirst, I think, from people to have a go at this.
In that case, stand-up or comedy do have a really larger, I would say, market.
It does.
Right?
Yeah, it does.
You've been to Warwick for your undergraduate, and then to London for your master, and then to Manchester for your PhD, right? You've been to different universities, and you have such a cross-disciplinary background, I would say, or experience. So how has this kind of interdisciplinary or cross-disciplinary experience shaped your, practice and research nowadays?
That's a great question. I think I find it hard to imagine having done it in any other way, if you know what I mean. So it's quite difficult to provide a particularly cogent answer. I think I'm one of those people that really enjoys doing. I also really enjoy writing, but all of my writing tends to be about something that I have done in like a workshop space, rather than like analysing things from a distance. I really like to have been in it. And that has its own challenges, because you're having to then grapple with, okay, this is just a lot of what I'm writing about is my own opinion and my own experience, and trusting that rather than having that kind of, analytical distance perspective necessarily. But that's just where kind of really all of my research has come from, and it's just how I love to work. And I feel like when you're working with people, that's when you really find out some fascinating things, because people often do things you're not expecting them to do. So I just feel like that's really central to my research. And I definitely would never have gone into academia.
How many years have you done in the, I would say, industry?
In the real world.
Yeah, in the real world. How many
like
years?
10 years I did. Because I finished my undergraduate and I was like desperate to get out of academia in a way. Not that I didn't enjoy my undergraduate degree, I did, but I felt really hungry to like actually be doing theatre. So I did go straight to London and I tried to make it as a director, and then I sort of financially, emotionally and physically like ruined myself. And so then I sort of retreated home to live with my parents for a bit, and then I came back to London, did my master's, but the master's was very practical in directing. And then I worked like as a director in different guises really for a good long time. And then I kind of came back into the PhD
after 10 years.
But I would never have been ready before then.
What made you,
The thing that made me do it was that I was, interestingly, I was invited back to Warwick as an alumni who had done proper theatre. They do, and we still do these evenings sometimes, but to sort of meet the current undergrads and talk about my career, such as it had been.
Because you have been already in the industry.
Yeah, because I was in the industry. Nadine had sort of seen that I was working in the industry as a director, and then contacted me and said, oh, will you come and talk to the students? So I did. And then we got chatting, and she offered, she was like, oh, do you want to come and do a workshop? And I was like, yeah, jumped at the chance. So I came and did a workshop, and then that went really well. And then I got offered a sort of a block from text to performance, which is the first year module. So then I did like 4 sessions the following year, and I just really enjoyed it. And I just had this feeling of like, oh, this is really, I just loved working with the students, because I was doing a lot of community stuff, lots of work with young people. There's something so nice about working with undergraduate students who are just like, have the skills, are confident, really interested. And I just felt like, oh, this is something I could do. So Nadine was like, have you ever thought about doing a PhD? And I was like, no. That was then at the same time as I was starting to find Thesmophoria and get interested in comedy. And that was happening concurrently. And I just suddenly was like, hang on a minute, this actually would be a really interesting PhD. So I put together a proposal. I never really thought I'd get a place. But you did? Yeah, applied to Warwick. I did get a place at Warwick, but I didn't get any funding. And then I was like, this is not going to happen. But then, I'm sort of stars aligned, and I managed to get some funding to do the PhD at Manchester. And then all of a sudden I was doing a PhD.
And you finished it.
And then I finished it, and then I got a job here. And I'm so happy that happened. And the PhD was just the best thing I've ever done. I loved every second of it. And I think just because I'd had that break of 10 years, I just was
You have
Really?
experienced everything.
It just was like, just ready to come back into academia. And I was like, oh yeah, I've always loved academia.
Yeah.
I always did like it when I was young as well. I just needed to have that break, I think.
Really?
I just needed to have a break. And then I was like, wow, I'm just getting to like read all these books.
Okay.
Great. I just loved it. Yeah, loved it. I miss it.
I'm on the opposite way.
I think a lot of people
But I think getting a PhD is kind of a threshold for you to enter the door of academia.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of people have to do it,
Yeah.
right? If we cannot do it, I'd prefer to not do it and then just teach.
Yeah, but I don't think you are ever going to be as good as you would be if you, because it's so hard.
And you will be well trained.
Yeah.
Right?
I just think it is awful on lots of levels doing a PhD, but then also it is so good for you. At the end of it, you're like, wow, I do actually know something.
But anyway, you have mentioned that you have 10 years experience
Yeah.
in the industry. And for me, I have noticed you've done some big stuff, right? Like you've done some adaptation for BBC4.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah.
And Royal Exchange Theatre and among others, right? And this work often, carries some, social, political themes, feminism.
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff. And, as a director or dramaturg, how do you balance artistic expression with the complexity of social issues?
Well, what I should say first off is the show that was adapted for BBC4 is not my show.
Oh.
It's okay. I worked on it.
Okay.
So I was a dramaturg on it, but it was Javad Alipour's show, and I've worked with him quite a lot, and I'm married to him. So it's his company.
It's still your baby.
It's mine, exactly. Definitely. No, it was, we worked on it together, but it was his. It's his work.
I didn't expect you would say, and I married him.
And reader, I married him. Yeah, I have done my own work as well that has had political themes. And yeah, I don't know really. I think a lot of Javad's work is great because it's not so much about stuff, even though it is obviously about stuff, but what his work tries to do, which is really inspiring, is kind of give the audience an experience of it. So, for example, the show that was adapted for BBC4, that was called The Believers Are But Brothers, and it was technically, about masculinity, the internet, and extremism, but it was so much more than that. It was more of an experience of the internet. It was trying to pull the audience into this sort of give them this sort of physical, tangible sense of being pulled into this space where, on the one hand, you can be disembodied and you can behave differently and you can make connections differently, but on the other hand, there's kind of like extremists lurking in the corner, and you can be pulled into strange places. So that's the kind of work I really love, to be honest, where it's not necessarily like, this is what this is about. It's more about creating a space to experience something, creating a conversation in the audience so that people can walk away, and it can percolate in their minds and they can kind of make their own decisions about stuff. I haven't done anything like that for ages.
Oh.
Yeah, because I've been
academia.
full-time academic. I've been writing my book, had a baby. So yeah, I've not really had to direct anything for ages. I have Javad's most recent show, which is called Things Hidden Since the Foundations of the World, and that's about an Iranian pop star that gets murdered in Germany, and it's like uses true crime as a form to kind of explore post-colonial politics, really. But I was dramaturg on that, so I am doing bits and bats. But I've definitely shifted in the last sort of few years over to full-time, being an academic. And
Nice. applied theatre in our department empowerment is always related to sort of social change, right?
Yes.
But do you believe theatre still has the power to, you know, get things changed in today's world?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I think it depends how you define change. But I do think probably in whatever way you define change, I think theatre has the power to do it. I think sometimes we can be quite narrow about change and think about it in terms of like policy change, or is the government going to change it? But you know, maybe they would because of some theatre, I don't know. But I think especially if you shift your idea about change, I think it has absolutely the potential to transform people's lives. And you know, the work that I've done in comedy, that's really at the heart of that, because every time I've worked with a group of women and they've gone through the workshops and they've performed stand-up, every single time I've seen them change, and I've seen how, you know, that experience has given them confidence and a new kind of sense of themselves. And for some people it's been extremely transformational, you know. So yeah, so I
gradually
it's just qualitative. It's about, you know, how you feel about yourself, you know, what you think, like in terms of like what you can do, what you can achieve. So yeah, I really believe in that, and I think that we need that more than ever, you know, to come to spaces where we can be together and play and laugh and connect, and
just like the vibes that we are having these days.
Totally,
Right. And you mentioned you are writing your book.
Yes.
These days, right?
Yes.
Do you want to have any, you know, short introduction about your first book?
Yeah. Thank you. First book, and I'm kind of at the end of writing it at the moment. My deadline is in a month, so it's a bit hard going. But we'll get there. But basically, yeah, it's about my work with the Women's Comedy Workshop. So it's about all sorts of things, but it's about, in a nutshell, a new way of teaching comedy, which centres empowerment and affect and laughter, as opposed to jokes, punchlines.
Is it very much practice based on your teaching experience?
Yes, it is. It's a very practical book. It sort of bridges the gap between practice and theory. So it's not just like games and exercises, although that is in there. But what I'm really trying to do through the book is to build a totally new way of thinking about comedy education, which thinks about sort of atmosphere and affect and laughter and people supporting one another, and centres that, rather than you know, starting with kind of what is or is not funny. And the reason I'm writing that book is because lots of books exist that are about comedy and about stand-up and about how to do it, but they always start with, you know, what makes a good joke.
Analysing the jokes.
And there's totally space for that. You know, we need that. And it's not like the workshops don't include any of that, because they do. But I think there's a real need to think differently about comedy education, so that we're not starting from a place of like, right, get up and be funny. Because for a lot of people, especially people that have been socialised for whatever reason to think that they're not funny, that feels completely impossible and alienating, and it means that those people are never going to get up and have a go. So I start with games and with play, and basically just trying to get everybody to laugh and connect. And then from that place of laughter and connection and fun, people start being funny naturally.
So what you mean, educate humor or comedy is more for audience rather than for students, right?
No, and it's for the students as well.
Oh, okay.
It's for the people who would perform it, but it's about going, let's get you all being silly and laughing together and having fun, and then from there you'll start to be funny. And that's like an upside down way of thinking about comedy education, really. But I think it's a really important reversal, actually, because when you start with laughter, people start relaxing and then revealing the funny side of themselves, and then you can use that as sort of material and shape that into a stand-up set. But I find that that's a much more empowering way of teaching, because it's more about making people realize they already have the tools, they already know how to do this. It's not an alien thing for them, and that they can absolutely do it in their own way. Another thing that I talk about in the book a lot is thinking about comedy as a form of participatory theatre, alongside how we might think about other forms of participatory theatre. Weirdly, stand-up is completely separated out from a lot of other forms of like applied theatre, participatory theatre, even though it is highly participatory. You know, the audience is
all the time,
all
right?
the time participating.
Yes.
And, you know, comedians, when they talk about how they develop their material, they're always talking about the audience as a co-creator in their work, because they're sharing material, seeing what works, then changing it, sharing. So actually writing comedy material collectively, which is what we do in the workshops, we literally sit in a circle and we help each other write jokes that work for each person. That is such a good way of making comedy happen, because it's actually mirroring the way that comedians work, which is participatory. And I think another thing that I write a lot about is how kind of when we think about comedy in this way, you know, what you might get out of it is different to maybe how you might normally think about what you're going to get out of a comedy workshop experience. So there's other forms of participatory theatre. You take part in it. You wouldn't necessarily think, oh, I'm going to be a professional actor. You're like, I'm going to take part in this project because I want to make friends, because I want to build my confidence, because, you know, I'm having a hard time. I want to learn some new skills.
Release myself.
Exactly.
Like
Stand up. You walk into a workshop and instantly the facilitator assumes you want to be the next Sarah Millican. And they're instantly talking about, okay, this is how you get gigs. This is how you cope with hecklers. This is how you make it, you know, you make it. And I'm like, why? Why do we assume that everybody who's doing stand up for one workshop wants to do it professionally? It's weird. So the book again is really decentering that and looking at all the other things that might happen because you've done stand up. You might just do it that one time, you might do it 3 times. In my case, I've done it like 10 times. I don't want to be a professional comedian, but I've got so much out of that experience. It's made me a better teacher. It's made me
as a researcher,
a better researcher. It's made me much better in navigating, you know, sometimes like social situations, using humour in those sorts of situations and being confident in my ability to do that. So I do think there's so much else that people can get, and also friendships and, you know, all sorts of stuff. So that's another thing that I'm talking about in the book is comedy really is like a transformational space where what you start seeing is all the different things that you could do and all the different ways you can present yourself to an audience, and you sort of feel that possibility, that sense of possibility. I think that's so empowering.
In that case, can I say stand-up comedy could be another type of like drama therapy?
Yes, yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah. I just don't see why, because, like, you know, one of the things I say in the book is if you go into like a pottery workshop, like no one assumes you want to be a professional ceramicist. Just like, cool. Like, you've come here on a Saturday afternoon and you want to have a go at making a pot, and then like that's allowed to be an end into itself. And I really think we should shift how we think of comedy, and it, you know, just having a go at it can be an end unto itself, and especially healing for people, all sorts of people, but especially, you know, certain types of women who really have had that taken away from them. They've not been allowed space to be humorous, to be laughed at, to be funny. And so often, you know, the women in the workshops are quite cut off from that side of themselves, and when they reunite with it and develop it and give that part of themselves a bit of oxygen, it's quite amazing, really, quite healing, sometimes quite sad, because you almost realise how much of your life you've not allowed this part of yourself to come out
even sometimes you made fun of yourself, right?
Yeah,
It made you
absolutely.
much more.
Self-deprecating,
Yes.
humor. Yeah, like you put yourself down, and I don't know. It's amazing. I think sometimes participants have to grieve a little bit for that. Of like, wow, I really haven't allowed this part of myself to grow. But then you've had that. But then it's so wonderful to have that space to nurture that side of yourself and to see where that can go.
In that case, can I say, the people or the women who attend to go for the stand-up comedy workshops is sort of a marginalized group
Yeah.
in our society?
I would say so.
Can I say so?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's okay to say. I mean, I would say that obviously everyone's different, and it's not the case that every woman that I've ever worked with has felt like this. And actually, when I started, I was a lot more scared of putting the participants in there out of their comfort zone, because I was like, oh, I don't want to scare any of them. And then I actually, had to readdress that, because I think a lot of them really want to be pushed, and some people really haven't grown up with that feeling that they're not funny. But I do think there is a real problem in our society. It's well researched, well proven, in all sorts of different interdisciplinary modes of research, that women just receive less laughter in conversation. Women are expected to be the ones laughing at the jokes rather than making the jokes. That, a lot of women, I think by 4 years of age, little girls have already learned that they're not meant to be making jokes. They're meant to be laughing along at the jokes of the little boys in their class or whatever. So I think it is quite endemic in our society. And I do find as well, even like with students, and it's like 2025 as we talk, but sometimes I'll be talking to the university students and I'll be like, let's go around the circle and let's all talk about comedians that we like. And everyone says a male comedian. And I'll be like, does anyone know of a woman comedian?
Yeah.
Or, and sometimes, it wasn't that long ago, a couple of years ago, one class I was working with was like, oh yeah, we just don't feel like women comedians like are as funny, and just I feel a bit uncomfortable. And I just was like, oh my gosh, it's amazing how it persists, this idea that it's a bit cringe when a woman gets up and tells jokes. So yeah, it definitely is, I would say, okay to say there's a certain way in which women are marginalised, and that kind of operates through humour.
And it's another way of being feminism, right?
Yeah, I think it really is.
Yeah.
Nice. Stand up is your point of view.
Straight away.
Yeah, it's your point of view. And, you're literally standing up there, flesh and blood. The audience is looking at you, your hair, your stature, your, how we present in terms of gender, age, race, so lots of stand-up comedians, are talking about those issues really brilliantly, and
nationality,
absolutely, culture,
color,
all these things, and it's I think that's one of the reasons it's becoming so popular, because I think a lot of performers just think, I'm interested in those sorts of stories, and stand-up provides, as you say, just a really quick vehicle. It's like I can just get up. And I do actually remember this myself, because I had been working as director for so long, and constantly going through this lengthy process of choosing a play and then working with the writer or devising it with actors, and
in a much traditional way, right?
You try really hard to make a point about something, but it's like, it's really, you're having to go really round the houses to try and make your point. And then I was like, oh my God, I can just stand here and say it.
And in this way, it's
in
much
5
cheaper.
minutes. It's much cheaper. It's quicker, cleaner. So not to say that we should only have stand up. Yeah,
that's a key point.
And then you're just in the bar at 9 p.m. No, but I did think, wow, this is simple. It's really nice and simple.
You don't need to work for
as a vehicle to get your ideas across.
Right.
But then I also think there's something about a room full of people laughing together, and together, you and the audience collectively sensing the boundaries of what's acceptable to say, what's transgressive. You're kind of together working out, okay, this is what we think about this topic. That feels too taboo. This is where, you know, we all agree. This is where we don't agree. And so I actually think as well, there's like a live, like conversational discourse happening around ideas, which for the audience feels really exciting as well. It's like, wow, you know, I'm in a room and somebody's just talking about this kind of radical feminist idea and everyone's laughing, and it's like really empowering. It's like, wow, everyone's really agreeing with this point of view that I maybe thought was just my own.
But do you have any awkward moment that you find it funny, or, you know, it's a good joke, but the audience don't feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always a risk. I've had the worst moments I've ever had are really when I'm in the audience and somebody, not like a women's comedy workshop event, but like just a, you know, ordinary comedy event, and everyone's laughing at a sexist joke. You know, it obviously works the other way. So it's a real amazing, you know, furnace for ideas. And that obviously can go in different directions. And I have been at, you know, a number of nights where I'm like, there was one in particular, oh my God, and the comedian was just saying really horrific things I won't repeat. And I was in the middle of a row of your like proper theatre seats. So I just couldn't get out. And everyone was laughing. And I was just sat there on my own thinking, this is mad, you know. So yeah, definitely isolating and scary, because then you're thinking, oh my gosh, everyone's laughing at this, and I don't agree.
Yeah, any topics that you would bear in mind that I would never touch that topics?
Well, no, the thing that we always say, and this is kind of standard across comedy really, is the idea of punching up and punching down. So, you know, like jokes have punchlines. They don't have to be punching at somebody, but sometimes they are, and that's fine. So, but what, in terms of like, if you're trying to, you know, do the kind of comedy that I would want to do, you know, you're trying not to punch down at people that have less power than you. So punching up is like liberatory in general. Like I could make a joke.
Good saying.
Yeah, about MPs or even,
powerful people.
Yeah, or even my husband.
Politics.
You know, it's kind of like the audience would come with me on that, because it's like, okay, probably your husband's got slightly more social power than you. Also, you've got, you know, that particular relationship that you're telling us, you know, through these jokes. Whereas, you know, there was like an incident once with a woman who was taking part in the workshops that I run, and she was a white woman. She really wanted to make a joke about at the expense of a taxi driver, and the group was like, do you know what, it just feels a bit like you're punching down, because the audience is probably going to assume that taxi driver was a person of colour. It wasn't talked about in the set, but that's an assumption. Also, you know, you come across as kind of middle class, and that's a more working class job. So it's all these kind of cultural assumptions that we're making, but in the context of the joke, it felt like she's punching down. So then she changed the joke.
Nice.
So it's just sort of thinking a little bit about how does this come across, even if you're not meaning to be racist or, you know, homophobic or whatever. It's like thinking about how this might be read and making sure that it doesn't seem like you're
assaulting
pushing
someone,
down a group that already, you know, you have more power.
True. Agree.
So that would be the only thing that I would say, like, avoid. But really, I think absolutely anything can be talked about in stand-up.
You're already, you know, at the end of your deadline of writing your book. When it will be published?
Hopefully next year.
Around in the middle of
I'm hoping by this time next year it'll be out. I'm hoping. Maybe before then. I don't know. I think maybe Easter. 2026 it'll be. Because it's got to just go through peer review and such.
And hopefully someone would translate it into Chinese. Yes. And Chinese comedians could read it. Ooh. Let's see. Yes. Yeah, because I think stand-up comedies are quite popular nowadays back in China. It's got a large, broader audience to some degree compared to the theatre industry. It's much cheaper, the tickets, right? Yeah. And easier to understand to some point. Anyway, yes, very good. Cool. Yeah. Nice sharing. So my very last question is, Do you have any further plan about your research or artistic teaching practice will bring about in next like 2, 3, 5 years?
Yeah, so I am starting to think, okay, what's next? The thing that I love most about this comedy research that I've done is the relationship between the performer and the audience. That's something I'm really interested in. And so I might move slightly away from comedy and look at that in other contexts. So I have been thinking a little bit about technology and how technology can kind of like aid communication between the performer and the audience.
Like what kind of technology?
Well, so, for example, in Believers, the show I was talking about before, the Stravard's show that I worked on, the audience is all in a WhatsApp group through the performance, and they're like communicating with each other, and they communicate with the people on stage. And I'm interested in like that kind of an idea, basically, where you're blurring the line between the audience and the performer
During the performance?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So how you can kind of use technology to kind of create that feeling of liveness. I think that's what I'm interested in, because really with comedy, it's not technology, but it is that feeling of liveness. It's that we're really here together in this room.
And you are creating the show with the audience together to some degree, right?
Yeah, we absolutely are. And there's a feeling of like, it's always different every time, but there's a real feeling of that being heightened in comedy. And so I'm kind of interested in other environments where that's heightened, that feeling of liveness. So that's maybe where my next research projects will
Then improvisation is so important for the actors, right? Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Exciting. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, do you have anything want to add more? Or
No, that's amazing.
It's more about your, experience, your teaching, your book, your research. For now, probably in 10 years we could do another episode.
Yeah,
yes,
maybe in 5.
Oh yeah, in 3. But so many valuable insights, especially for theater people, right?
Yeah.
For comedy people. Yes, we look forward to the publication of your first book. Probably I will be your translator. Anyway, yes. And thanks for listening.
Thank you.
See you next time. Bye.